Hello, everyone from Singapore. I'm up in RJ's room. He's sleeping on the bed. All right, so I started the recording. Oops, that's the last slide. Okay, so welcome to our March membership meeting. It is the first Monday of March. I always like to start our meetings talking about when the next one will be, so you can put it on your calendar. So our meeting for April will be on Monday, April 1st at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Our exercise of the month, we are continuing with our athletic falls training that we did in January. So in February for Leap Month, we did leaps, but we're going to be going back to our athletic falls training. And the athletic falls training, our number one goal is to prevent falls and not have falls, but that's somewhat unrealistic in life, especially the more you're doing, the places you're going, there is a chance that there's going to be a trip or a slip or something might happen. And it's really important. The more athletically you can fall, the less likely you are to have an injury. And that's what's really important. So going backwards is something, we're not going to practice falling from standing backwards. It's not a trust fall with no one to catch us. But we are going to work on letting our body move backwards, starting low. So we'll be like sitting down on the mat and we'll roll back onto our back and come back up. And then we might kind of progress up to a crouching position where we then roll and kind of tumble backwards. So we'll have a video showing this in our video library very soon. And you always can do whatever amount you feel comfortable with. It definitely is something that doing things like this online is different than in person in terms of our ability to be there with you and kind of show you things. What we have noticed is because we're doing this as a training in person, what we have noticed is that you really want to work on tucking your chin and kind of holding your head in a tucked position as you go backwards so that when you go back, you don't experience kind of a whiplash or a bumping of your head. And that's why we start low on the ground and we start slow. But that's one of the things you really want to think about is tucking your chin and holding your head in as you go backwards. So we will have a video describing this. We'll get started doing it. You may probably already have been starting to do it in classes because we talked about it before I even left. So they probably started doing it in classes since the first. But yeah, it's a really good thing to train. And we already have heard from a few people. One person was exercising with resistance bands out on their deck, and the resistance band broke. And so they were losing their balance backwards. And she said, I remembered that I think in one of the classes, I mentioned how you kind of just want to ragdoll. You don't want to stiffen up or kind of freak out if you're having a fall. You want to ragdoll down and absorb that impact on as many parts of your body as possible. So she thought of that all in the milliseconds that the fall was occurring, but was able to ragdoll and have no injury and, didn't bother her at all. So it's cool to hear that things like this are helping. And if it's not necessary to have a fall athletically, it's just a good exercise to work on rolling backwards. It's good for our vestibular system. It's good for functional mobility. So there's a lot of other benefits as well. So for this month, for those members who are on the call today who are in-person members, we're starting new support groups in person. This is something that definitely could happen online if people were interested. We're starting with in-person like we do for many things. We do in-person first, see how it goes, make sure it's good, and then offer it online as well if that seems like something that people are interested in. So we've been talking about doing support groups for a long time. To me, it was really important to have it be led professionally. So there are quite a few groups in our area in Orange County, support groups that are kind of led by volunteers and people with Parkinson's. And I think all of that is great, but I really wanted to have a professional who could guide the conversation. And so, yeah, so we're very excited to finally start a group because we have a social worker who's available. So Darlene Mann is a social worker who has retired from kind of regular full-time work. She's worked in many different settings, and now she works as kind of a care manager. So she works more like on as an individual with families in figuring out kind of during times of transition, what is the best way to set things up at home or what resources are needed. Her sister had Parkinson's, so she has direct family experience And then she has a lot of professional experience as well, and a lot of experience running groups for people with Parkinson's and people with other diagnoses. So I'm super excited to have someone who really can help kind of talk through and work through things. So our first meeting that's going to happen at Rogue for people with Parkinson's, we're going to have 2 meetings a month. One is for people with Parkinson's and one is for spouses and partners of people with Parkinson's. We may expand from there. Part of me really wants to have potentially more than one group for people with Parkinson's, one that's maybe more focused for people who are more recently diagnosed within a few years, and then potentially one for people who've had Parkinson's. Thank you, Diana. That is correct. One who've had for people who've had Parkinson's longer, because in my experience, there's different things to talk about depending on how long you've had Parkinson's. Day 3, 11. Oops. There we go. So the first meeting will happen tomorrow at Rogue, and it will be once a month on the first Tuesday of the month for the support group for people with Parkinson's. And then the one for spouses, partners, will be on the second Tuesday of the month. So that meeting will be next Tuesday, March 12th, and they're both 3 to 4 p.m. So let me know if you have any questions about that. Our women's group in person is the second Friday of the month. And since Friday was the first, it will already be this Friday. We had a speaker on pelvic health, Carrie, who joined online a few months ago. So she joined us in person. It was a great discussion. So this time we'll basically be we don't have a speaker. We'll be talking, kind of debriefing, reviewing anything from our speakers, talking about who we'd like to bring to our meeting in the future, and talking about any other topics that people would like to talk about. Then on Monday is our educational meeting with Dr. Tanya Denny. She's a naturopathic physician who did her training with Dr. Lori Mishley up in Seattle at Bastyr University. And she's setting up a practice down here in Orange County now. She just did a one-year residency program at UCI, University of California, Irvine. They have a pretty big integrative medicine center, and so she did a residency there and now is getting set up with her own private practice. So she'll be talking in general about kind of naturopathic care and how it can complement allopathic or kind of traditional medicine. This is something I think, depending on what state you're in, sometimes be like a naturopathic physician is illegal in some states, like they are not allowed to practice. And I think there's somewhat of a history, and even Bastyr University has a little bit of drama in terms of someone who was one of the leaders at the university having some alternative views on things. Naturopathic physicians, I think, can be very wonderful to work with, but they also can be very alternative, where they may say, don't take medication and only take these supplements. And so it's really hard to navigate kind of who to work with and who to believe. If someone is telling you not to take pharmaceutical medications from your physician, I would not work with that person. There is extensive research on how beneficial medications are. I definitely think medications can be fine-tuned and can be utilized in the right way, but definitely if someone tells you to stop taking medication that your neurologist prescribed to you, I would not work with that person. Dr. Denny is someone who really knows that the best is combining more traditional healthcare and some more alternative options. So kind of how a naturopathic physician works is they tend to do more testing in terms of blood testing, maybe hair, maybe stool, things like that. So that's one thing she'll talk about, the different type of testing they do and what information they gather from that. And then they look at lifestyle factors that could influence these things. When it comes to hair testing, sometimes what they're finding is high mercury, and someone maybe has been eating a lot of fish because that's been one of their main sources of animal protein. And so they might say, okay, let's decrease the amount of fish you eat because fish is what is the highest kind of opportunity for mercury exposure in what we eat. So sometimes it's making changes to what you eat, more of this, less of this. Sometimes it's supplements that are recommended. And so Dr. Tanya Denny will join us and talk about kind of her approach, the testing, recommendations, some of the most common things she can help people with. I would say when it comes to symptoms like constipation, dietary changes can be one of the most effective. And there's some other things like low blood pressure is one. I think it's like a licorice root or something that can be very effective in raising blood pressure safely. So there are some things that, a naturopathic doctor can come with a different perspective and be very helpful. So I'm excited to have her. That meeting will be recorded so that if you're not able to join us live, you can watch the recording afterwards. So that'll be Monday, March 11th at 1 p.m. And this is on Zoom. On Tuesday, I mentioned the support group for spouses and partners of people with Parkinson's led by Darlene Mann at Rogue. And then Wednesday, the 13th, is our online women's group with Julia. And this month in March, we do not have any holiday closures. Future educational meetings in April. So we were supposed to have Dr. Catherine Longardner join us to talk about blood pressure, but she unfortunately had a conflict where she was actually going to, I think, present on her research at a meeting. So she was not able to come in April. We've had some requests, though, from people about how to be prepared for a hospitalization. So we have a woman named Belinda Stewart Berger, who's a nurse navigator at Hoag Hospital, one of our close hospitals that has a great movement disorders program. She is going to join us to talk about how to be prepared for a hospitalization. So when it comes to hospitalizations, this is something that can be really tough for people with Parkinson's because at many hospitals, they don't totally understand Parkinson's medication and timing and how important it is. And so a lot of people who've had a hospitalization maybe planned for a procedure or surgery or unplanned for because of an accident, car accident or something like that, have had really bad experiences. And so it's something that you want to understand why that could happen, what you can do to improve kind of your preparedness if you do have to have a hospitalization so that hopefully it is as inconsequential as possible. So Dr. Berger will be doing an in-person meeting and an online meeting. So it will basically be the same content of the meeting, but just doing once in online and once in person, so that kind of each group, whether you can come in person or you're joining online, kind of gets the best attention and information and opportunity to ask questions. So I'll send those dates out very soon because I do think I have those dates already. I believe she'll join us on a Monday for the online meeting because I try to have those scheduled on Mondays. And there are some really good resources from the Parkinson Foundation. So I'll link those. Those are things you could either print or order and have that kind of ready to go. And of course, just like a fall, the goal is not to need to have a hospitalization, but just statistically with us and being human, there's a chance that it's going to happen. And if it is for something that's elective, if you're going in for a surgery or something, you just want to, again, have a plan, talk to your doctors, talk to who's there. Ideally have, someone, a family member there who can advocate for you. Because that's one thing is, when you're in a hospital bed, it's hard to get people's attention and get things done. So there's a bunch of things you can do to really make this a better experience in the hospital. And so you can get out of the hospital as fast as possible. So that will be our topic in April. In May, in person, Dr. Sandeep Thakar is likely going to be joining us. And so I'm going to see, he's a movement disorders neurologist in our area. I'm going to see if he is someone who would be able to also join us online for a second meeting, or it may be that our online meeting is a different topic. In person, he will likely be talk more of like a Q&A. We're kind of trying to host our local movement disorders neurologist to give talks at Rogue, just so our members can see the different neurologists in the area, so they can find the one to work with that is the best fit for them. So it'll be kind of more of a Q&A with the doctor, not necessarily a specific topic, but I know he did present at a symposium in our area last year, new treatments in the pipeline. So that could definitely be a topic I could ask him to talk about with our online meeting. The only thing I heard from people that it was kind of at a high level and a little bit difficult to understand. So I would just have to make sure that I talked to him about that and he made some tweaks so that it isn't a talk that none of us understands. So I'll work on that. for May. And then June is the month that Dr. Long Gardner was able to reschedule for. So she's going to come for a meeting at Rogue. I think it's just a one-time meeting. I will find out from her if she's able to meet online as well. But if not, the time when she comes and meets in person at Rogue, we will broadcast that on Zoom like we did with Dr. Petzinger's meeting. So we'll be able to show that live on Zoom, and then we will also record it. So in case that's the only one, she's going to be talking about low blood pressure. Orthostatic hypotension is when your blood pressure drops when you go from sitting or to standing or change positions, as opposed to some people have low blood pressure all the time. Some people really have blood pressure that changes based on their position or what they're doing. And then she's also going to talk about research studies that they have going on, and she's from UCSD. So we have had members from Orange County go down to San Diego to participate in research with her before. And I'm sure she'll be able to answer, are there any studies that you can participate in from a distance if there's anyone from out of town who'd be interested. One of the studies that our members participated in, because she is kind of an expert in low blood pressure, I think that's what quite a bit of their research is around. And one challenge we have with blood pressure is monitoring it. By the time, if someone's feeling lightheaded, by the time we get a blood pressure cuff on, hit the plus, it fills up, it's like a minute or two of time. And so we don't really capture what's happening with blood pressure in the moment. So they were studying a continuous monitor. So like a small monitor that you could wear on your arm that would be measuring your blood pressure all the time. So for people who have low blood pressure, you can see, how low is it, how consistently throughout the day, look at the timing of how medications affects it or meals or other things. So it would just be helpful to have that information, be so helpful to help people who really struggle with low blood pressure. We have some members who have had low blood pressure their whole life. Figuring out how to manage that can be challenging. All right, and I got a question, Sally. Is the Saturday, March 9th program with Dr. Chen still on the schedule? Yes, it is, Sally. So sorry, I don't have that on our schedule here. Whoops, wrong direction. This schedule. So yes, on Saturday, March 9th, Dr. Chen, who joined us for the online meeting in February, will be joining at Rogue. So basically it will be the same meeting that she did, talking about medication optimization. But yes, Sally, that is happening Saturday, March 9th at Rogue, 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, as you can imagine, while I'm here, I'm pretty good about, once I'm on vacation, not really doing work. I kind of check in, with everyone at Rogue. I check my email and respond to things that are necessary, but otherwise I don't do work. So last night I was putting this PowerPoint together before I went to bed, which was kind of late because we went out to dinner with RJ's sister and brother-in-law and parents, and then came home and we're talking after that. So I am not surprised that I missed something. So Dr. Chen will be joining us. After June, I'll keep working on bringing in experts to talk about these topics: bone health, service dogs for people with Parkinson's, dystonia and dyskinesia, stem cells, new treatments in the pipeline. I will likely be asking Dr. Chen back because I think she's a really great presenter, and she is someone who, to some degree, is just a little bit more available right now because she's getting a practice set up. And so she has a bit more time. Most movement disorders neurologists are very busy. So it is hard to kind of get any time with them, especially during the week, during office hours. They're busy treating patients. So I'm going to try to get Dr. Chen to join us for a few more of these things. She also is a DBS, has a lot of experience with DBS, and we talked about DBS, probably it was a year and a half ago now. We did a multi-part series where we had some of our members who've had DBS come in and share their experience. And I think that we had Dr. Duda joined us. So it was like 2 or 3 calls that we had. So we do have some information about DBS in our video library. But I think given that that is a pretty common treatment for people to be choosing to access, or just one that you may want to be well educated on in case it's something that's ever appropriate for you in the future, I do want to have Dr. Chen come and talk about that as well. because I think she does a really good job presenting information. Um, so I'll keep working on our future educational meetings, but I'm excited for the ones that we have coming up. And another thing that I'd love for you all to save the date on is the SoCal Ride and Walk for Parkinson's in Irvine, California. So this is coming up at the end of April, April 27th. That is a Saturday, and it's in the morning. So this ride started, I believe this will be like the seventh or eighth year. This started as a ride. So one of our members, Karen, her husband Bob, not too long after she was diagnosed, said, I don't just want to sit around waiting for the cure to be found. I really want to actively participate. And he saw that Michael J. Fox Foundation had the opportunity to do grassroots fundraising and events. So he organized the first SoCal Ride. And I believe that year there were like 30 some people and they raised like 20 or $30,000, which is significant. And it was a bike ride. And so then since then, I can't remember which year was the first year with a walk, but they realized, yes, it's great to do a cycling event. There's lots of people who like to cycle, but there's also a lot of people who want to participate that may not feel as comfortable on a bike, especially on roads, if cycling isn't something that they do very often. So they added a walk. So we meet at Hoag Hospital in Irvine, and there are three distances that people can do for cycling. And so people can sign up for whatever distance they want to do. I think there's like an 8 mile, a shorter one, and then a 30 mile and a 60 mile, because cyclists go really long distances when they go for rides. So you could sign up to do that, or we also will have a walk, and the walk is an out and back. So it can really be the distance that you want it to be. You could walk 1 mile. The longest it is a 5K, so about 3.1 miles, where we walk out and back. It's a really nice path to walk on. So I know at this point, by last year, the walkers definitely outnumbered the cyclists. So it's great to have both and get together. 100% of funds go to research through Team Fox. So Team Fox is an arm of the Michael J. Fox Foundation. That is the grassroots, kind of when people in their community want to start a fundraiser. And so this ride has grown each year. I think they now have raised over $250,000 in all the years that it has happened. And last year raised over $100,000. So it's a very cool event. I highly recommend that our local members participate. We do have, I believe Billy and her sisters are going to come out. Because Billy's sister lives in California, so she's going to come out to visit her and then also come and participate in the ride. So if anyone else ever wants to come out to participate with us, that would be so awesome. There also is the opportunity to participate virtually, though. You can sign up virtually and on that day go for a ride or a walk with us and kind of just do it virtually and in spirit together, which is also really cool. And then we'll be accepting donations starting now. Going through even after the event, donations can be accepted. So we really want to make this the best year ever. And early in April, I didn't put on the schedule since I was focusing on March, but early in April, Team Fox does, an MVP event in New York where they host people who have raised over a certain dollar amount to basically celebrate people's success and for everyone to meet each other who's out there kind of doing this fundraising. So I have last year was the first year that I got to go to this event, and it was really cool. And they did there's a research roundtable Saturday morning, so we get to hear some of the latest research, and that was all really fascinating. It reminds me there was some technology that was being developed related to swallowing that there was some cool research going on, and I also just was curious, how could people get this device? So there were things I learned last year that I still want to follow up on. I'm excited to learn more this year about the research that's happening. And then they do kind of a social event and a celebration where they give awards. So I think that they give awards to like the top 10 teams. And it's just really inspiring to see the team. I think that won the number one place in terms of raising funds for 2022. And they did kind of a special recognition is a ride that was started by a gentleman's mother on the East Coast. And they have grown over, I think about 10 years that they've been doing it, not a really long time, but they've grown from a very small ride to now an event that raises more than $1 million for this event. And it has grown steadily each year. And at this point, it got so big that kind of Team Fox has, to some degree, taken it over from the family. I think once you get that big in terms of the number of riders, it's just really a lot to manage. So the family's still very involved, but they don't have to be completely running it anymore. So Team Fox has kind of taken it over. But very cool to see what is possible with events that brings the community together and raises funds. And like I said, when it comes to Team Fox events, 100% of funds go to research. So then we get to hear about the studies that are funded, and actually what's happening. And there were so many things I learned about the Michael J. Fox Foundation. We do have a call in our video library with someone who works for Michael J. Fox Foundation from last year that just gave more background about the organization as well. And not only do 100% of the funds go to research, but they have, like, I don't know if it's called a mandate, in terms of how quickly they use the funds. So money is not going in, to their bank account and sitting for years. I think it's within 90 days they turn over. So money comes in and they constantly have the projects that they are funding or want to fund. And within 90 days, it's decided what is this money going towards, and it is out to the researchers. So that's also something that I think there are a lot of things that Michael J. Fox Foundation does that are very unique in terms of how they fundraise and how they process and how they fund research studies and how quickly they do all of this. And that as an organization, their goal really is to put themselves out of business by finding the cure for Parkinson's. So I'll be going to that early in April, and I will also do a debrief meeting after I go to that to share the things I learned from the meeting as well. All right. So one other thing that I didn't put a slide in for, but that I want to share that is a major update is that Julia has been accepted to do a residency program in Boston. So those of you who are in Boston area or close by, she will be living there starting this summer. So a residency program is something that both Alex and I have done. It's usually a year-long program to really accelerate your knowledge and experience working with people who have neurologic conditions. And it's something that Julia had expressed interest in from when she first was doing her, student training with us, and then when she started working with us. And as much as it will be really sad for Julia to leave and to go do this residency, we're super excited for her to have this experience. I did a residency program, like I mentioned, and what they say is that it basically accelerates your practice like 5 years. So you gain 5 years of experience and training in 1 year. So she will be, I believe, at the VA in Boston. So she'll work with people with all different neurologic conditions. She will learn a lot. And who knows, maybe she'll come back to Rogue after that with all of her new knowledge and work with us again. So she will be with us through the end of May. So we have 3 more months to enjoy exercising with her. And then the beauty of our online membership is that you actually can exercise with her forever if you really like working with Julia. We will have videos of her in our video library that you can keep exercising with her. So very bittersweet. We're very excited for her, but we also will miss her a lot. But it's nice that we have, a bit of time where we know this is happening. We'll do a celebration with her as a kind of goodbye party when we get closer to the end of May. And in terms of classes that she teaches, so right now my plan is actually to take over some of the classes that she teaches and kind of spread some of them through our team that we have already, because between myself, Alex, Jamie, and Maddie, we will be able to cover all of her classes. So that is our plan. I'm not planning on hiring a new person just yet. One thing I've realized is that one of the reasons I started Rogue is because I really like teaching classes. And I've gotten to the point where I'm kind of more administrative and overseeing things, and I really miss teaching classes. So I realized when she was leaving, that's an opportunity for me to take over both some of our in-person classes and some more online classes. So that's the plan initially, is that I would be taking over multiple classes from her, and then we'll see how that goes and kind of how staffing is. And at some point, if we find a really great person to hire again, we will. But we don't just hire just any PTs. So we can't hire on demand quite like a regular clinic might be able to do if they're just hiring, a regular PT who's going to do a regular physical therapist who's going to do regular physical therapy. We're a much more unique setting. We're very choosy about who we hire. So we'll see if there's a new hire or if it's just something that our current team um, takes on. And it is interesting though, because this week while I'm gone and just with the news of Julia going to do this residency, I did receive an email from someone in our area who's interested in opportunities. So, sometimes things just work out and the right people show up. When Julia joined the team, she agreed to join the team when Stephanie told me she was moving. So this is almost 2 years ago now. Stephanie Lavasser was the first physical therapist that worked with me at Rogue. She was there from the very beginning and through COVID. And she was so awesome. Many of you probably know her because she was teaching online classes through, it was 2022 that she moved. So 2020, 2021, 2022. But she got pregnant with her third child, and she and her husband realized that was the time that was best for them to move back and be closer to family. Her husband's from Minnesota, and she's from um, Wisconsin. I'm a little tired. It took me a second. So they're from the Midwest, and so they moved back to be closer to family. Stephanie's doing great. Really happy for her as much as we miss her. And then Sally asked about Al in the chat. Al is doing well as well. His big news is that his wife is pregnant. I think she's due in June. So Al is going to be a dad soon, which he's going to be an amazing dad. So we're very excited for them. His new job is going well. I think he does miss us a lot and would prefer to work at Rogue. His new job, I think, is good, but I think if he really had a choice, he would be still working with us at Rogue, but just the distance of how far he was driving made it something that was not feasible long term. So we miss Al very much as well, but he's doing great. And yeah, maybe sometime I can have them join us for like a little update to share how things are going. So yeah, so that is all the news that I could think of for March. Other things may come up. And if so, let me know. But yeah, any questions or discussion for today, I will go ahead and stop our recording and stop our share. So thank you for those of you who are watching the recording.